Hi, I'm William Peng, and this video is for those who are trying to learn the basics of C++. I'm sure that you already know what you're going to use C++ for, so I won't really go into the uses. So the first step is you have to have an IDE or integrated development environment, so please download it. I recommend Visual Studio Community 2017 for a Windows computer or Xcode for a Mac computer. The IDE basically gives you a place to write your code and allows you to easily compile your code so it actually runs. There's also built-in debugging software, and they help color code the different parts of the C++ syntax so all the parts are easily identifiable. So without further ado, let's get into it. I created this basic program to hopefully allow you guys to learn the basics of C++. So this program basically writes Hello Science Research onto the output screen. And if we run the program, as you can see, it successfully outputs Hello Science Research. So let's analyze the components of this program. So first we have the function called the main function. Every C++ program has to have a main function or else it won't run. And the program actually starts running at where the main function starts. So let's say I have a program called William that's right above it. If we run this program, it will actually start with the main program and it will completely skip over the William program. So as you can see, these two brackets right here define the start of the main function and the end of the main function. So if you look at this phrase right here, it's basically telling you to, inside the standard list of identifiers, look for the count identifier. And the count identifier coupled with the output operator will basically print whatever you write here onto the actual screen. And then the semicolon marks the end of a phrase. So basically, the semicolon is like a period and it basically ends the line. And then at the end, we have a return 0, which means it returns the value of the function as 0. And that would allow you to see if your program ran successfully or not, depending on whether you got an end value of 0. So it says program ended with exit code 0, meaning that we know it ran successfully. But the strange thing here is Hello Science Research and the second line here is actually right next to each other. C++ is weird in that it doesn't start a new line every time you have a new line. So in order to accomplish that, we need another identifier called the endl identifier, and that basically tells the program that this entire line is done and to start the next line on a fresh line. So if we run this again, as you can see here, the two phrases are in different lines. Whoops. And an important part of this program that I forgot to include in here is comments. So basically, if you have two dashes like this, it allows you to write a comment. So let's say, and as you can see, this part is highlighted in green, and this doesn't affect the code at all. These two dashes basically tell the program that to not include the sentence as part of the code. So this does two things. It allows you to keep your code organized so that when you come back to it later, you can tell yourself what it does instead of actually rereading the code, which is annoying. And it also allows you to basically comment out code that you don't want to deal with in the meantime. So let's say I can't figure out how to make this line work. So to continue on with the rest of my project, I can basically just comment this entire line out. And when you run it, nothing actually shows up because it just returns 0. So yeah. So now that you guys know the basics of C++, let's work with some variables. So here in this line, we define the integer x, and basically it creates a spot in the computer to retain the value x. And if we set the value of x as 5, the value 5 gets stored as x inside the computer. And then we can use our count identifier to output the value x onto the screen. So that way, since x is 5, we output the value 5 to the screen. And then if we put x plus 3, it will give you the value 8 because 5 plus 3 is 8. So basically, you can do a lot of calculations on C++ as it knows how to do multiplication and basically anything you can do with a calculator. So also, for a rookie mistake, never put anything after the return value or else it'll never execute because the function main ends right after return. So this is basically just useless. So if you want to add something, add it before the return function. Return identifier. So let's define another integer called y, and we can set y equals to 3. So if you do this, you can have x plus y, and that will also equal to 8. Oops, forgot the semicolon. And that will equal to 8. So as you can see, you have, there's no space in between them, so you have x times 3, 5 times 3 is 15, and you have 3 plus 5 is 8. Alright, so now that we know the basics of variables and how messy I am with coding, we can go on to something more advanced and useful. So let's say we define this integer x, but we don't want x to have a specific number. We want to be able to enter a value into x in the actual program. So we use something called the identifier sin and the input operator and x. So what this does is that it asks for the person to put a value in place of x, and input operator. And what it actually does is, I'll show you. What it actually does is that it allows you to input a value to store in place of x in the actual program. So right now, you see nothing because the program has stopped at this line and is waiting for you to input a value. So if you put in a value 5, it gives you the value back 5 because we asked for it to put the value 5 onto the output screen. But prior to this sin identifier, you should really have something that asks the person to actually put a number in, because if you're not the writer of this code, you would actually never know to put in a value. So what you would do is you would type a phrase such as please enter a number here, and this would be prior to the sin identifier, which would allow for it to flow more properly, and the person looking at it actually knows what they're doing. So please enter a number here, 5, and alright guys, so for a challenge, I would like you guys to create a program that when you enter the temperature in Celsius, it would output the temperature in Fahrenheit, and try to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible so that all the spacing is there and everything is properly labeled, and you actually ask for the person to enter the temperature in Fahrenheit and stuff. So pause the video, give it your best shot, and I'll show you the solution that I came up with in a few seconds. Alright, so hopefully you guys gave it a try. And here, I'll show you guys my solution, and we can go over it. Alright, so let's first run this code and see what happens. As you can see, please enter the current temperature in Celsius, and then say you put 30. It says it is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Yay! Alright, so let's look at what happens in the actual program. So we first define the integer x, because x is going to be the variable that we use for the temperature. And then we make the program output the sentence, please enter the current temperature in Celsius, so that the person on the output screen knows what to do. And then we have the SYN identifier and the input operator into the variable x, so whatever the person types here will go into the value x, and then we make it output it is, and then this is the formula for converting Celsius to Fahrenheit. Basically, you're going to multiply the Celsius temperature by 1.8 and you add 32 to it. And then we have another phrase, degree Fahrenheit. And then we end the line so that the program ended with exit code 0 goes on a separate line. There's obviously more efficient ways and more elegant ways to do this than having 3 different phrases, but this is the solution I came up with. So yeah, I hope you guys learned at least the basics of C++. And if you guys want to learn more about C++ or need to know more information for your project, go to learnc++.com, well, learncpp.com. And that's where I learned C++ from. So yeah, have a nice day.